On behalf of the coalition and our incredible partner, the Waunakee Public Library, thank you for being here tonight and showing up for something that truly matters: your health, your well-being, and really the strength of the community. At the coalition, our vision is simple but powerful: to make Waunakee healthy and resilient. As we know, that doesn't happen by accident. It happens through connection, education, and the courage to have real conversations. That's exactly what the April Wellness Series does or is all about. Each year we bring in speakers who are willing to do something not always easy, and that's to share their stories, their struggles, their setbacks, and most importantly, how they found ways to overcome. Because the truth is, every single one of us at some point in our lives will face challenges with our mental health or overall well-being. And in those moments, it's easy to feel stuck or alone. But you are not alone. And there are tools, there are strategies, there are healthier ways to cope, to grow, and to move forward. Part of our mission at the coalition is to create conditions and opportunities that prevent and reduce substance abuse. And one of the most powerful ways we can do that is by opening the door to conversations like this, by learning, by listening, and by reminding one another that asking for help is not a weakness, it is a strength. Okay. So tonight I encourage you to lean in, be present, take something with you. And if something resonates, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, start a conversation, or seek support that you deserve. Because a healthier, more resilient Waunakee starts with each of us. And with that, it's my honor to introduce tonight's speaker. Most of us at some point asked ourselves a frustrating question: why do I keep doing this? Why do certain habits stick, even when we know better? Why, in moments of stress, do we fall into patterns that don't serve us? Tonight, we're not here for a quick fix or surface level motivation. We're here for something deeper, something more honest. Our speaker is going to challenge the idea that we struggle because we lack discipline or willpower. Instead, she invites us to look beneath the surface to understand how stress, early life experiences, and even our body's built-in survival responses shape the way we think, feel, and act, often without us even realizing it. This is the kind of conversation that can shift perspective, the kind that replaces frustration with understanding and judgment with clarity. Tami Schiltz brings a powerful combination of expertise and real-world insight to this space. She is a registered dietitian, a certified personal trainer, a podcast host, a gym owner, and a community leader. But more than that, she's someone who helps people make sense of why change can feel so difficult, even when we genuinely want it. Through her work, she focuses not on quick fixes, but on awareness, on understanding the nervous system, and on recognizing the patterns formed early in life that continue to influence how we show up in our health, our relationships, and our day-to-day lives. Tonight, we can expect to walk away with a clear understanding of your own patterns, new language for experiences that may have been hard to explain, and practical tools to help you move forward with greater awareness and less self-judgment. This isn't about fixing yourself, it's about understanding yourself. So I invite you to lean in, stay curious, and be open to what you might learn, not just about the topic, but about yourself. So you're going to hear some really, really cool things. And by attending tonight, not only are you going to get some coping strategies and some tools for your mental health and well-being toolbox, but you're also going to walk out looking like Tami at the end of the presentation. So I promise. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Tami Schiltz.
Thank you for that. Oh boy, here's my magic wand. Well, and I'm glad that you said that, because it really does tie into my story, and that if you judge a book by its cover, you would miss out on my story, and that I haven't always looked this way. And it's easy to assume, right? We can look at someone and make all these assumptions. And that was really part of my journey when I started was I worked at UW Health and bariatric surgery, helping people with weight loss and weight management. And what I found was that even just the way I was then, it was really hard for them to open up because they judged me. Like, what do you know? You've never struggled. You've never suffered through this. And when I started to open up and share my story, then their walls came down. They're like, oh, you do get it. Like, yeah, I do. And so I'm a storyteller, and I love sharing my story to just help it. Like, you're not alone in this. And just because I have those little letters behind my name doesn't mean that I don't face some of those same struggles that each and every one of you do, and that it has been a journey to get here and to stand before you and learn the hard way so many times. And that's why I want to give presentations like this, is because it's not that there's this quick fix or there's this cheat code, but if we can stop beating around the bush and actually get to the thing, then we can make much faster progress. Because I did that whole thing of trying to search outside of myself for all these magical answers, all these different diet plans, and every infomercial gadget gizmo there was, I ordered it. And so I understood that, but I was always searching outside of myself to think I could fix what was broken. And when I realized that I wasn't actually broken, but that there were patterns that were driving these behaviors that I couldn't stop, even with the knowledge that I had, even with those degrees, it didn't matter. And so that's why I'm so passionate talking about these types of things. And so thank you for letting me be here. Thank you for the opportunity, Tim, and for Waunakee Library, and for all of you for showing up on a beautiful Tuesday. I was like, there is no one coming because it is gorgeous out. So if you want to move it outside, that's fine with me. But so yeah, I'll share a little bit of my story, and I'll certainly weave it in throughout because that's kind of how I roll. But when I started to look back at my story and try to make sense of, like, why was I the way that I was? Why was I always so hard on myself? Why was I doing workout videos in 3rd grade when I was a normal, healthy weight kid? And here she is. I bring her with me because she even wrote on the back, when I was 8 years old, it says, make sure you let everyone see me. And I was supposed to give this to my sister apparently, but I never did. But she wrote that, a message to myself now to say, get out there and share our story and let people know that this is deeper than just a lack of willpower and a lack of knowledge. And so I'm up here for her and to be able to serve all of you. Yeah, like, why was I doing workout videos in 3rd grade? Why was I trying to change how I looked? And then getting into high school and starting to restrict my eating and try to starve myself and working out before school and after school. And then I get into college and I become an emotional binge eater. I go the other way. The pendulum swung the complete opposite way. And now I'm an exercise sports science major because I can exercise my way out of this, right? No, I couldn't. Because, you eat entire pizzas in your car and all of those things, like, you can't really out exercise your eating habits. And I learned that very quickly. And so I went right past the junior 15 and the freshman 15 and did the junior 40, which again, here I am with, this is my degree. This is what I'm supposed to be learning. I'm supposed to be really good at this. And I felt like a complete fraud. And I carried that with me, thinking, just chasing the next thing of, like, I'll figure this out. I'll figure this out. I'll fix this. I'll get another degree. I'll get another certification. I'll do another different diet. And I did that cycle for so long and never understanding what was happening underneath. And so that's what I want to talk about today is, gosh, like, why do I keep doing this? And I want you to think about this, whatever that story is for you. It may not have anything to do with nutrition and diet. It could be anything in your life where it's like, why do I keep, whether it's relationships with your partner, your kids, or at work, like, why do I keep running into this same brick wall? And when you start to hear yourself somewhere in my story, even though it's your story, be like, oh, you can start connecting your own dots. And that's when you become basically your own healer, your own detective, is you can figure these things out. Like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. So I want to get to the bottom of that and really look at why, because there's some frustration with this, right? Like, here I am, I got a master's degree in nutrition and I can't stop binge eating. When I'm stressed, when I'm sad, when I'm like, I know better. It was never that I didn't know enough. I paid a lot of money to get that degree and to have that knowledge. But when I was triggered, when I was sad or mad or whatever, it went right out the window. I was nowhere to be found to make a rational decision in that moment. And it's not that I didn't care. I cared a lot. And it certainly wasn't that I wasn't trying. I tried everything. And so when we can start to look at this like, and get really curious about it, that's when we can start to piece this puzzle together and start to get some answers. And so I want to think about this reframe and starting to take this shame cycle away and stop beating ourselves up, because that just keeps us there, right? And we just keep swirling around like, I should be doing better. I can't believe I can't figure this out yet. I'm old enough. I should be figuring this out. All these things that keep us stuck, when really we can flip that and know, like, this actually isn't about discipline. It's not about the knowledge. It's not about the willpower. And so we start to get curious about this pattern. And I love the question of thinking, instead of why is this happening to me, is how is this happening for me? And when I started to look at every diet that I somehow sabotaged, like, why? What was it trying to teach me? And when I started to see that, in one way, there were certain aspects of each little thing that I did. Oh, that worked, but that didn't. Oh, I liked this about that, but not that. You could start to kind of piece together things that worked and what didn't work. But what I really recognized was I needed to go deeper. And it wasn't about anything that was on the surface. And so when we look at these patterns, we start to look at, where are we doing things kind of automatically? Where are we reacting without even taking a pause? And for me, that was going straight to the pantry, straight to the fridge. Or anytime that I wanted to kind of check out or numb, I would use exercise as punishment for what I ate. And it was this vicious cycle. It was this pattern that I would get into. But it's these learned responses when we feel stressed. It's learned responses when we feel emotion. And we find ourselves in these same patterns, whether it's with relationships, at work. And so when you start to get really curious, like, where do I start to see these same things happening over and over again? It's like you do the same thing over and over again, expect different results. Like, ooh, like, yeah, I definitely do that. But where do I do that? And how can I get curious about it? Because I was definitely doing that. Because we all have these default patterns. And I'm just scratching the surface today on what some of them are. And maybe you relate to some of these. So maybe you'll hear yourself in some of these. And know that there is no blame, there is no shame. The pendulum swings really far in all of these. And you can find some really positive things in them. But sometimes they can happen to our detriment too. So if you are the person that takes on all the responsibility, you are the one that keeps it all together. You got all the plates spinning in the air, and you're like, should be a professional, like in the circus, because you can juggle all these plates and all that stuff. And you're the one that holds it all together. Maybe you're the one that fixes everything. Everyone comes to you for everything. And so you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders all the time. It's like, okay, that's a pattern. Why is that? Why do I feel the need to take all of this on? And why can't I ask for help? Why is it so hard for me to receive help, support? And maybe you learned that message early on, that if you want it done right, you better do it yourself, kind of thing. Or just getting it done all together. Like, you just learned to take it all on. And for me, when it came to this and with nutrition and those types of things, is I would try to keep it together all day, right? And then you get home and then everything just collapses. Or you'd be really good Monday through Friday, right? And then the weekend came, it's like, well, blew that. So how many of you have said, like, I'll start again on Monday? Right, pattern. Okay, pattern. I see it. I can get curious about that now. I don't need to beat myself up that that's been something, you all knew it, right? I said it a million times myself until I got curious. I'm like, why do I keep doing that? Why do I keep doing that? What is getting in the way? What is happening midweek or Friday? Maybe it's because I was so restrictive all week that I'll talk about these different parts of us, but that restrictive part was like running the show all week. Well, Friday comes and that rebellious part wants to come in and kick the door down and be like, this sucked. I want to have a party. Let's go eat some pizza. Let's blow it all up to smithereens. And now that I've failed, we might as well just keep it going and start again on Monday. And I didn't need to beat myself up over that anymore. I just needed to get curious about why I was doing that and going deeper with that. And then we have this one. I'm really good at this one too. It's like, ooh, that's uncomfortable. I'm just going to avoid that. I'm just going to ignore that. I'll just check out. Like maybe you had a really stressful day and you come home and you just want to check out. I don't want to think. I don't want to feel. I don't want to do anything. So I might scroll on my phone. I might watch, 8 hours of Netflix. For me, I would use food. Food is my way to numb. Food is my way to check out. It was a way to dissociate and kind of check out. I can do it like that. We can be here and I can just, where'd you go? It's like it's an automatic response. is that we do this because sometimes it's just, everything just feels too much. And right now in our world, everything is so much. We can't escape it. You know, us growing up, like we went outside and we played, and there wasn't our phones literally everywhere with news and social media and all this stuff. Like we are literally bombarded. It's all so much. And there's a part of us that just wants simple. It just wants calm and peace and all of those things. But that's really, we have to go out and search for that. Whereas before it was just out our front door. And so the world has changed, but it can all just feel like too much where we just want to shut it out and just want to avoid it. But in doing that, sometimes we shut down the parts of us that need us to be present. And I was really, really good at this, but not as good as I was at this one. So I am in recovery for people pleasing. Some of you may know this one well, but you'll do anything to keep the peace, right? We will bend over backwards to keep everyone else happy. Meanwhile, we had this thing that we wanted to do. There was this goal that we wanted to achieve, but we set it aside, make sure everyone else was happy, made sure everyone else was fed first, made sure everyone else had what they need. We don't want to make anyone mad, so I'm not going to bring up that conversation. I'm not going to bring up that topic because I don't want to make them mad. And I spent my lifetime doing this. And what I didn't realize was that I never wanted to rock the boat. I never wanted to make anyone feel uncomfortable. But in doing that, I abandoned what I needed to feel. I never asked for what I needed because it was always about the other person. And in doing that, that pain that we feel when we abandon ourselves, like, ooh, that hurt. And so my ego was like, we're not having that. And so I would, again, turn to food, turn to whatever besides actually feel this. And then we have this one, a lot of people know very well, is that control. And this is one where it can come off as a great characteristic because you get stuff done, right? You got a to-do list, you hammer that out, you get everything done. People know you're the one to go to, right? And it has maybe served you really well in aspects of your life. It's helped you achieve things in your life. It's helped you get things done. It's helped keep the family organized. It's helped you achieve at work. But sometimes it can happen to our detriment, like this pendulum swings so far, right? Because now we do it to the point where like exhaustion and burnout. And if we feel like we don't get it right, we can't do it at all. And that was, again, with nutrition, with diet, with exercise. If I couldn't be perfect at it, well, then I completely blew it and I was on the complete other end of the spectrum. And I was eating whatever, wasn't working out. It was just one end or the other. There was no in between. And we don't give ourselves permission when we're here to make mistakes. And actually, my son, he's 7, he'll be 8 in August. He just wrote, they had to practice a word and put it into a sentence, and it was possible. And he wrote, everything is possible. But he left the R out of everything. And I was looking at it and I'm like, you know what? He nailed it. Because everything is still possible even when you make mistakes, even when you mess up. And like, and just sharing that with him, because at first he saw it and he was like, yeah. I'm like, buddy, like, this is great. This is a great message, right? But we don't see it that way. It's like, oh no, I messed up. I failed. It's over. I ruined it. I blew it. Like, we don't give ourselves that permission to mess up and to learn from it. And so again, we think what's really interesting is this aspect of control and how it makes a part of us feel safe. And again, it can help us achieve, it can help us get the raise, it can help us whatever. But here's the other thing that people don't realize is that we sabotage things as a form of control. Because you can predict the outcome then, right? If I ruin this right now, 2 weeks in, that's gonna hurt way less than if I was a year in and really successful. So I'll just sabotage it now, and that way I know the outcome. So we do this to ourselves all the time. I do anyway. And there's been many opportunities, even with jobs and opportunities like that, where for some reason, like you avoid the email, you avoid the conversation for whatever reason. It's like, well, I just ruined that, sabotage that, because I'm sure they were going to say no. What if they turned around like, no, I was actually going to offer you that? And you're like, oh, God, Mary, why do you do that? Again, why do we do this? And so the truth here is that like none of these are flaws. None of these make you weak. None of these make you flawed. None of these make you broken. It is just looking at the pattern and what is underneath. And the more you can get curious about that pattern, you, again, become your own detectives. And it can get really fun when you start connecting the dots. And that's my favorite part of my job. And so what is actually driving these patterns? And I'll break it down for you and give you the 101. There's two parts of us all the time operating without you even knowing. And so for each of you sitting here, I'm almost imagining like two other people sitting next to you. There's a part of you that learned really early on, and there's a part of you that learned to protect. And this is what I want you to sit with and think about, even after leaving here tonight, is once I finally figured out this concept of this inner child and that this little girl is still with me every single day, I started to get curious about these patterns and where they were coming from, and that she was driving so much of this. And when I look back at that third grader, like, why didn't she think that this was her? Does she look like she was overweight, got teased? No, she was a perfectly normal weight kid. She had all kinds of energy. She was fun. She was spunky, but no one would have known what was happening at home. The tension that she felt, the eggshells that she walked on, the judgment she felt because she had 3 older sisters. And the one right above her was the tall and skinny one. So even though she wasn't overweight and got teased, she stood right next to her sister who was tall and skinny, and everyone always said, "Oh my gosh, you're so tall and skinny." Well, then I was over here like, well, what does that make me? I guess I'm not good enough. And that was the story. And that became a pattern in my life where it was never good enough. So I thought maybe exercise video would help me grow a foot. But that started this cycle and this pattern where I was always searching for a way to fix myself so that I could be good enough. But that was a story that my ego created to try to protect me. Because what happens is, for so many of us, I have 2 loving parents. And they did the best that they could with what they had. And the more that I've explored this work, the more love and compassion I have for them in knowing that they did the best that they could. Because I know that they came in with wounds and unmet needs and things as well. And they really, truly did the best that they could with 4 young daughters. I remember thinking when I was 22, I'm like, if I were my mom, I'd have 4 kids from 1 to 5 or from 0 to 5. I was like, what? You know what I was doing when I was 22? Not that. Not that. Not being a responsible parent. So I'm like, I can't even imagine what that was like for her. And so a lot of us grew up in this era where our parents thought, hey, as long as there's a roof over their head, there's food on the table, there's clothes on their back, they're good. We did our job. But we forgot about the emotional needs that we had because they didn't they didn't get that support as well. So how were they going to support us? And it's not that they didn't want to. She had 4 kids from 0 to 5. There's no way she could meet all of my emotional needs, to feel seen, to feel heard, to comfort me when I was always sad. And so what happens is there's this little girl who's feeling these feelings and doesn't know what to do with them. And this protective ego comes in like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why are you sad? I don't like that. We're going to fix that. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to get seen by being that overachiever. We're going to be seen by being the perfectionist. Maybe we're the troublemaker. I had a sister. There's 4 of us. So they all got their roles, right? And the second was always the troublemaker, but that's how she got seen. That's how she got her needs met. Not in the way that she really wanted, but she got attention. And when you start to explore these things, you can start to understand that pattern underneath. And then I can see that everything I was doing was always trying to just be good enough. And when I started to understand that all of these things that I was doing to sabotage was my ego trying to protect this little girl from feeling sad. Like, no, we don't want you to feel sad. Go eat that pizza. You'll feel better. No, don't be mad. Just go make those 12 muffins and eat them all in one sitting. You feel left out because all your college friends are, the pretty girls and you feel like the fat friend. Just stay home and you eat the muffins. Okay. And when this really all started for me was my sophomore year of high school, when I was standing in the hallway, and I'll never forget it. It's like that frozen in time moment. And if you have those moments, explore those moments where you can remember exactly what you were thinking, what you were saying, what you were wearing, what you were doing. There's clues in that for you. And for me, the bully a year ahead of me called me a whale. And I remember I was all of 115 pounds, but I froze. I literally froze in that moment. And My ego, it was like I had this team come in and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't want her to feel that. What are we going to do? And so they huddled around me in the hall and they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to restrict her eating. She's only going to be able to eat chicken and broccoli, like at all, no other foods. She's going to exercise before school. She's going to go to practice. She's going to exercise after school. This is what we're going to do. This is going to work. And every time she looks in the mirror, she's going to tear herself apart. And then that way she never gets called a whale ever again. And I was like, okay. Like I wasn't in control to be like, whoa, this is a terrible idea. I just was like, okay. And that's what I did. And I suffered all the way through high school with no energy, trying to be this light, bubbly person, and I couldn't. And my light completely dimmed, and I lost who I was. And then I get into college, and when that tactic didn't work, they huddled back up and like, well, that isn't working anymore. She can't restrict her food anymore. Now she's in college and she's got no one. She's coming out of this toxic relationship. I know, let's emotional binge eat. And then I went the other extreme. So again, when I look at it, it's like, oh my gosh, I can have so much love and compassion for myself now, even with those degrees, even with that knowledge that I had, to see that there was these underlying patterns this whole time that were literally just trying to protect this little girl. And so I don't beat myself up anymore when I have those moments where I feel pulled to emotional eat, because I understand what it's trying to protect me from. And so if you can get really curious about that and know that ego isn't this like macho thing where you just think you're better than everybody. It's not that at all. It's like that protective older brother or sister that will fight for you fiercely. Like, don't you mess with her. And it'll do anything to defend you, anything to protect you. And when you can start to understand that and work with it, like, hey, like adult Tammy's here. I can feel these feelings now. We don't need to go to the pantry. Stand down. And it's like, oh, okay. But if I am not there, I can't help make those choices. And so it's like, who's driving, right? Am I driving that vehicle? Because for so long I wasn't. And so when we fall into these patterns, if we can just figure out, like, is my ego driving? Is that the one making these choices? Is that the one sabotaging that? Is that the one not responding to the email because it feels like, well, we're just going to avoid it? Because if we avoid it long enough, it'll go away. Has that worked for anyone? Or does it just not get worse? Right? And so ego has the best of intentions, but as adults, we look back and it's sabotaging all these amazing things in our life, trying to protect this little girl from the very thing that she wants. We block our hearts from receiving love and support. We push people away when really we want them close. And so there's so many things that we can just think, okay, who's driving in this moment? Man, we can change things in our lives, because the past is what informs that. Your inner child is giving you clues all along the way, like, hey, that hurts. When someone talks over you at work, that feeling that you get, that's her, that's him. Saying like, I remember that feeling when our siblings talked over us. That didn't feel good. Or when someone makes a snide comment and you feel that, or you feel emotional, it's like, why is my throat all tight? And she's trying to communicate with you. And we'll feel that, but then that protection is the one that responds, and then it shows up in our adult life. And so my example of this, I've got plenty. There's one in particular that is a little over the top. And this is before I knew about any of this work, because I couldn't make sense of what was happening in the moment. But here I'm trying to be really regimented with my diet and stuff, right? To hold it all together, because I'm a dietitian and that's what you're supposed to do. And I wanted vegetables at this meal. I was very particular about getting half a plate of vegetables at every meal. We didn't have any vegetables. And I felt this like just rage. And I know it seems ridiculous, right? I was so mad. I wanted to slam the fridge. I was stomping around. I was literally throwing an adult tantrum over vegetables. It sounds ridiculous. And remember this, if it sounds, how is it? Oh, I'll think of it. I was going to butcher this quote. Oh yeah, there it is. Told you. If it feels hysterical, it's likely historical. If you have a reaction that's like, ooh, that was a little over the top, it's likely because it's historical and it's coming from somewhere else and she's trying to get your attention. So I didn't know what was happening in the moment, but my partner at the time was like, yo, it's vegetables. You're going to be fine. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I stomped away and I went to the bedroom door and I slammed it. And I literally covered myself up with blankets, not realizing what was happening. I was literally acting out my inner child who didn't get what she wanted, who felt like her needs weren't being met. And once I understood, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I did that. But in the moment, it looked completely ridiculous and over the top. Or when I had my daughter when she was a baby and we were finally going to go out to eat, I could finally get out of the house and out of milk-stained clothes and spit up and all those things. I could finally go out and feel like an adult. And then she'd have a blowout, or then she'd be screaming and crying, and then we didn't go. And I would literally be pouting. Like, no joke, my arms crossed in the car, looking out the window. And even then, I'm like, Tami, like, get over it. But I couldn't. I was mad. And then I realized, like, oh my gosh, the youngest of 4 girls, I never got to do things that I wanted to do. I was always being what everyone else needed, what everyone else wanted to do, and just drug around. And now here my daughter's doing it to me, but she's a newborn baby and I'm mad at her. Like, that doesn't make sense. But it was historical. It was that little girl saying, this isn't fair. Like, when do we get to do something for me, for us? And so when we start to look at that, like, okay, I want to get curious about these big reactions that I have, because then I've got information, I can work with that. Because this isn't just in our mind. It's not more mindset work. It's not more affirmations in the mirror. Like, this is in our body. Like, you can feel this. You feel when these things come up, but we have to be attuned to that. We have to pay attention. Your body is constantly communicating to you. But we have to be really careful of not numbing that, suppressing it, ignoring it, and really getting in tune, because when you do, it gives you so much information. Because your body will react really, really fast before your mind can make sense of it. And so I want you to think about that. Like, your body will give you those clues, right? Like, you'll feel it, that pit in your stomach. You'll start sweating all of a sudden before you have a chance to figure out what's happening. Those things are happening. And so, like, okay, how do I work with this then? Because it's not that it's a failure. It's not a failure that you would go on this automatic response. It's literally your system, your ego working for you. Everything is just doing its job, trying to protect this one, always, always. And so when that protection looks like, and when we think about these things that we go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, you've heard this before, that survival mode, right? It's really hard to make rational decisions here. We're not the ones driving this decision. This is where ego swoops in. And you imagine you're faced with a bear, right? You go into fight, you think you're going to fight this bear. You're ready to attack. You're ready to yell. You're ready to snap at someone. Or flight, like, pew, I'm out of here. I'm running away from the bear. Peace out. I'm not dealing with this. I'm going to check out of here. I've done that before many times. Or freeze. And even that flight can be like just checking out of the moment, right? Where that's maybe where we're getting lost in something else and we just kind of leave that situation, that moment. Or freeze, where it's like analysis paralysis. And you're like, I've got this mile-long to-do list and I'm just staring at it. Because you just freeze in the moment. It just feels like too much. It's just that overwhelm. And you think about this, like, you get caught in a conversation, someone asks you something on the spot and you just freeze. Or I could be up here and all nervous and be like, Tim, take over. You freeze. That happens to people. And that's what's happening. As ego comes in, it's like, oh, which one of these am I going to do? Which one am I going to do to protect? And I'll tell you another little story. I've only shared this one other time publicly. This is acceptance right here. It was a freeze moment that I had in 5th grade. I was a percussionist. I got some rhythm, had some drums, but it was a bell lesson. Bells was not my strong suit. It's kind of like, piano. So I had to practice. I did not practice. And now, again, I understand what the home environment was like. It wasn't very conducive to like my structured practice time. There was no structure. There was no support for that. So I was like, okay, I can have compassion for myself, but I'll take ownership of that. I did not practice. And my band instructor was strict, but we were a great band, but because you don't mess with Faith Erickson. So I get up there and I'm on my way up. I'm sweating. I'm feeling like, oh, how am I going to hide this? How am I going to fake it till you make it kind of thing? And I got up there and I'm trying, and it's so clear I did not practice. Like, I can't fake this to save my life. And I can feel her being like, giving me that disappointed, like, I don't want to disappoint her. God, that fear of disappointment, isn't that crippling to all of us? And I froze. I froze so much, my whole system shut down, and I ended up peeing my pants in front of my band director in 5th grade. True story. And the only thing that made it worse was that one of my other percussionist friends happened to come up right as it happened. And so she still holds it over my head, but we've healed some things. But that's what happens. Like, it's completely out of your control. Or a fawn where it's like, I want to be the best, like best friends with the bear. Like, I'll do whatever you want me to do, bear. What can I do for you? Even though you are scary, you are threatening, you might eat me, but what can I do for you? And we keep these people in our lives. We keep people pleasing the people that hurt us. And so it's all a form of protection. And so we can have compassion in those moments when we fall into these. But this is where like we can like grab a hold of that steering wheel and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So knowing these full circle moments is like this reactions that you're having are not random. They're not random at all. It's patterned and it's physical. It's things that are happening within us. Your body remembers. So we can bring some awareness around us. And that was what Tim was talking about is awareness. And you can create a pause. And that pause is purposeful. That pause is a sacred pause. And that's one thing that you take from here tonight is like, if I can just pause in those moments, I get to the pantry and I'm like, whoa, 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 what are we doing here? Okay, I can sit with this. I can get curious. But just that pause alone, it puts me back in the driver's seat. Because otherwise ego is like, hey, let's go down misery lane. That one, we know that one well. Let's eat the whole thing until we feel stuffed. I was like, no, I don't want, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, we had a really stressful day at work. That's okay. I can feel that. I can talk about it. I can go outside. I can do something else to nurture myself right now, but I don't need to escape these feelings. I need to feel them and to move through them. But if I don't give myself that pause, we are on autopilot, automatic response. And so this pause is everything, because then you can make a conscious choice from there. You can respond with intention. And that doesn't mean perfection. That doesn't mean that I'm always going to choose an apple over a brownie. Hell no. There's many times like I'm absolutely eating that half a pan, but now I'm going to do it consciously. And I'm not going to beat myself up. That was my new rule. Is that if I ever, because it is still a coping strategy, right? There's a million things I can do if I find that I want to emotional eat because I'm feeling stressed. Yes, I could go outside. Yes, I could read a book. Yes, I could do a bubble bath, or I could, there's the whole list of things that we all know, right, of self-care. And it's not that like emotional eating can't still be one of them, but can we do it consciously and say, I'm still going to eat this. But just by doing that alone, I have found that I eat less of the thing. And I make a pact with myself. I'm like, you're going to choose to do this. You do not get to beat yourself up afterwards. Not tonight, not tomorrow morning. You don't get to step on the scale and then beat yourself up. Right? How many of us do that? We go on vacation. Right? We're like, I'm going to give myself freedom to eat whatever I want on vacation. And then you come home like, what were you doing? Like, no. You gave yourself permission to do that. You don't get to come home and then step on the scale immediately. Like, that's not fair. That's not fair. So it's like you make that pact to be like, okay, I'll give you some leeway. We'll give you a couple of days and then we'll get back on track. But you can respond with intention, but it's about breaking out of autopilot. And that pause, man, it does wonders to put you back in the driver's seat. And I use that analogy all the time. It's like we're driving the bus and we're trying to go down, inner child happy lane here and meet all of her hopes and dreams and things. But if ego's taken over, it's going down all these detours and like, no, the goal is there. Like, that's the job I want. That's the relationship I want. This is the body I want. Where are you going? It's like, yeah, but there's this detour here and this detour here. Like, I don't want, this is where I want to go, but it takes you on all these paths, right? I went down a lot of dead end paths until I got here, but I had to take back the driver's seat and the steering wheel and say, I am driving this. You need to let me feel my feelings. You need to let me make these choices, even when they're hard. You need to let me make mistakes because I would want her to know that she can make mistakes just like my son. How can I let him know that missing that R was totally okay and there's something we can learn from it, that I won't give myself that same grace? Because basically what I'm telling her is like, it's okay for my son, but not for you. And I would never do that to her anymore. And so that's like when you connect with that little girl, that little boy, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be the one that abandons her just to please other people. I don't want her to think that she has to be perfect in order to receive love and be accepted by me. And so when we can start to give that same love and compassion, whether it's that you give to your kids or your grandkids to yourself, boom. So many of these patterns, they become so much easier to manage because you meet yourself with so much more love and compassion, even when you mess up. Because that's usually what it is, right? We mess up and then it takes a month, years to get back to where we feel confident again to try again versus getting right back up on the saddle the next day, the next meal, or having those tough conversations because you know, I got me and I'm going to be okay. But this choice, it's everything. So I'm going to share, going back to my son again, he teaches me so many things. And my daughter too. My daughter is going to be 13, going on 18. And she is my greatest mirror. And I owe so much of my healing to her because when I had my daughter, I was like, I'll be damned if I pass down my relationship with my body and food to her. I cannot do that. I saw it from my mom to me, and I'm like, I have to be the one to stop this. And so I got to work on healing that. And it took a long time, and it's still an ongoing process. And she is a little mini reflection of me and triggers me all the time, but I love her for it. And they just teach me so much about when I see their big emotions, like how can I hold space for them and their big emotions? But I had to be able to feel safe in mine. My daughter was absolutely becoming a little people pleaser because she straight up told me, she's like, I don't want to tell you why I'm sad because I don't want to make you sad. Or I don't want to make you mad. Like, whoa. Like, I am the adult here. I should be able to handle this, but I couldn't. And kids are so intuitive that even if I said I could, she read right through me. It's like, nope, you are not emotionally regulated enough to handle what I got to tell you. And until I had to do that work on myself to really be like, no, I got this. You can tell me. Now I can see her being who she is and feeling safe to express her emotions. But before, she was hiding that from me. Whereas my son Arlo, he just says what he says and does what he does and feels what he feels. And it's like, oh, man. Because he's not trying to change himself in order for me to love him. He just knows that he is, and that he is unconditionally. And so we've had to do some unlearning. I had to do a lot of unlearning, but even with my daughter, we had to do some unlearning and then relearn how to be able to safely express her emotions. But with my son, this pause works for everyone, whether you're 6 years old or 60 years old. And so how we got my son up, because there was moments where he would go from 0 to 10, like, whoa, dude, like, how do I stop this? But I felt it. I knew exactly where it came from. And actually, there was a moment when my daughter was like 2.5, we were going to a princess, literally a Disney princess thing. And I just needed her to get her coat on. And I was trying to like let her be independent, right? And like, she can do this herself. And I was starting to get, let's go. We're going to be late. It was just a walk-in thing. Whenever you get there, there wasn't like, you need to be there at this time, but something in me, right? It was historical. And for whatever reason, I turned and I kicked a hole in the wall right in front of her. And I'll never forget that moment. And she still remembers it. And I carried so much guilt and shame for that moment for so long, because that's not the kind of mom that I am, that I ever wanted to be. And there it was, right there. And I can own that now and fully own that now and understand where that came from. And knowing what that little girl learned and what she saw and how conflict was resolved and all of those things. And we've explained that, had those conversations with her now of like, yeah, I felt triggered because if I was ever late to something, like I had a teacher who would just harass me in front of class. And so it's like, I remember that feeling like, we can't be late. Let's go. We got to go. And so we've talked about that and repaired that moment. But I knew that I needed to change my responses because my kids were modeling me. And so with my son, Arlo, he was big into superheroes when we started this. And so it worked Hulk, because he would literally like Hulk up and he would get really mad and he'd get really angry. And I'd be like, I see Hulk coming on here. And like, Hulk's about to get you some consequences. You know what happens when Hulk leaves? Who's left with those consequences? And he was like, oh, me. Like, yeah. You sure you want Hulk to take over? Are you sure you want Hulk to throw that thing right now? And it would be just enough for him to like come to, right? Because he was on autopilot. Hulk had taken over. Like, where is Arlo? Hello. But as soon as he heard that, he could just stop and pause and be like, oh, yeah, you're right. I don't want those consequences. And he could make a choice. Yeah, maybe I need to get my anger out somewhere else, another safe way. And so even as adults, so when you think about this, like, what does your Hulk look like, sound like, feel like? And it may not be that it's Hulk. It may not be that big scary guy. It may be that one that gets really small and quiet and doesn't speak up, that lets everyone walk over her, that doesn't have any boundaries, that does everything for everyone else. And so what does that version look like for you? And when you can get curious about it, again, you can meet it with compassion. Be like, hey, Hulk, we don't need you to destroy this tower you just built here, or you don't need to throw this thing. But I understand why you don't know how else to express your feelings and emotions right now. And so it can be a really powerful thing to look at. What does that look like for you? What does that feel like for you? And it's not about being perfect, right? It's just about noticing. Can I start to bring some awareness to my patterns so I can start to notice and give myself grace and compassion and whatever it is, and that we are not broken, that we are just patterned, and that we all have this really fierce older brother, older sister within us that wants to protect that little you inside. And now if you can show up as the adult, like adult Tammy's here, she's got this, then I can speak to that part and understand like, hey, ego, I know why you want to eat this entire bag of chips right now, but it's okay for me to feel sad. I can feel this. I can let myself cry right now. I can let myself be mad. And then I move through it. And that actually happened with Arlo just last week at a volleyball game. His friend wasn't there. He got sad and he was frozen and he was stuck. He literally just needed to move through it. He needed someone to give him a hug and say, oh, I bet you're bummed. I'm sorry, buddy. And as soon as he just felt seen and heard in that moment, he moved right through it and he was back to playing. Because we all have still that little boy or girl in us that just wants to feel seen, that wants to feel heard, that wants to feel valued and loved unconditionally. And we can do that for ourselves. And that's what I learned. The more I searched outside of myself, I would still abandoning her. But the more I stay connected to that little girl, and little Tam comes with me everywhere, and I take her with every presentation with me. And just that alone as a strategy leaving here tonight, like, can I remember that little girl or boy? Can I go through my picture book and maybe find a picture of her and connect with her? And that could just change things. Maybe you have a picture of her in your bathroom. Maybe you have a picture of her or him, in your car, at your work, especially wherever you seem to be the hardest on yourself. And you look at that, they just melt you and like, ooh, I don't want to talk to you like that. I want to treat you better than that. And if we can remember that, like it's some of the most beautiful healing that I have witnessed with the people I've worked with. But this is where it's like, I can't hand out just meal plans and workout plans anymore. It's not about that, because then I'm sending the message that, yeah, you're not good enough until you follow this perfectly. And I will never do that to someone. I want to get to why. Why do you need the meal plan? Because that sense of control. Well, let's talk about that. Where does that come from? And we can start to connect those dots. And then you start to show up for yourself in a completely different way. So if this resonated at all, if you guys have questions, I know we have a few minutes. I'm happy to answer anything. If there's more like, I thought this was straight up nutrition, not therapy, sorry. I'm happy to share any of that stuff with you. And that little QR code takes you to the website, but it's just unscriptedhealthandhealing.com if you want to look at anything. This is the work that I do and love. And it's so much more. It was never about the food. It was never about the food for me. And when I connected that, it changed everything. And it's allowed me to show up as the woman I am today, where I feel like I am this little girl's role model now. She can look at me like, I trust you. I trust that you're going to show up for me. I trust that you're going to nourish this body. I trust that you're going to move this body now. And I keep my promises to her. But it took a long time to get there. And so this isn't this quick fix thing, but man, if you connect to her, it fast tracks what this could look like for you. So if you have any interest in diving deeper into this, I have 2 years worth of podcast episodes to dive deep into this stuff. And we have lots of guests. Once I get it fired back up, I'd love to have Tim on there and share his story. And that's how we connected, was I shared my story on his podcast. But I love sharing stories because every single one of you has a story. Every single one of you has a story that just, she wants you to feel, to understand, to just validate. And so that's really what the podcast is about. And I have some really amazing guests in there. Like, how do they find the gift in the painful package? Or what was that purpose in it, right? How can we find purpose in our pain? And that's really what the podcast is about. So if you're interested in that, all you can find it on YouTube or Apple or Spotify. Yeah, so that's that. And because when you said you're all here, if you want to come look like me, you can come work out with me. Because we reopened F45 in Madison on the west side. So we're right off the Beltline. There's the Men's Warehouse and Walgreens right off Mineral Point Road. And so, yeah, we love it there. It's, again, I would have never have thought, what a full circle moment, right? Doing workout videos in 3rd grade, and now I get to be a part of a gym where I get to help people through this journey and help them feel stronger and more confident in their body. Like it is, I can't even make this stuff up. This wasn't even on my radar a year and a half ago. And so the healing that this has done has brought opportunities like this where now I get to be around people every single day and help them